Got
There
it.
we go. Mhm.
Okay, so if it's okay, I'm just going to start by lighting a candle and do my little candle thing. So in lighting this candle, we honor those that have taught us their wisdom at the end of their lives. We are acknowledging all of the kindred spirits that have shaped our stories and our conversations about death and dying. And we treasure the important people that we have loved who have died in our lifetime and all of the souls that have blessed our existence. Just have a little bring our ancestors in. So I think everybody knows everybody. I'm just meeting Misha face to face for the first time. I think I've seen you in the chat a little bit,
Yeah. I only
but
joined one of the co-working sessions previously.
yeah. So my thoughts for today's meeting was just to be, and this might be redundant now that you guys have been doing the I can't think of the name of the working meetings, but I just thought it would be nice for us all to kind of share like what we're doing to initiate our businesses and what seems to be working and what hasn't worked or what resources we can share for each other and those kinds of things. So I don't know if we need to roundtable and introduce ourselves, or do we want to do that, or do we think we don't need to? We know each
Maybe it
other.
Sounds
would
good.
be good just for us to go around and maybe like
Since it's being
names,
recorded. Yeah,
pronouns, and like where in the world you are,
I like
just so
that.
we have that orientation for everyone.
Let's do it. You start, Magdalena.
Okay, so I'm Magdalena DeRosa. I am currently in Boulder, Colorado. I'm about to be heading to Wisconsin before I move to Mexico. So I'm kind of, in fact, I don't know the last time I was in the same place for a meeting um, in a while. So I kind of bounce around and I use she and they pronouns. And I will popcorn it to Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan, and I had someone describe me as doula curious, so I like that. um, I live in Los Angeles, and I use she, her, and that's it.
Send it off, Susan, to someone else.
Oh, okay. Tess, you're next on my window.
I'm Tess. I use she, her pronouns. I'm in Los Angeles. And um yeah, have definitely some difficulty growing a private practice and really looking forward to this, Jeannie.
Who do you want to bounce to, Tess?
To Trish.
Hello, I'm Trish. I use she, her, and I'm in LA area. Yeah, I'm really excited about this. I've like been free falling into this doula world for the past few years and really like unschooling a lot of the ways that I was taught to be successful in this society that I'm in. And I feel like I'm at a beautiful place to receive this meeting today. So thank you so much. I'll pass to, I kind of was in a little late, so I don't know if who hasn't gone yet, but Misha is who's beside me here.
Yeah, I can go. I'm Misha. I'm any pronouns, and I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, North Bay. And I just relocated here. I was living abroad in South Korea for about 10 years. So I'm kind of like relaunching, reestablishing. Um, and I wasn't able to do like end of life work in Korea because my language skills did not make that possible. So I was doing mostly grief work, but I'm hoping to expand into end of life services now that I'm here. I'll pass to Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen, and I go by she, her, and I'm in Los Angeles area, more specifically Alhambra. Um, and I'm really excited to hear more from Jeannie about expanding the practice. I've been doing a lot myself in that regard, but with her help as well, but doing a lot of my own stuff as well. So I'm really open to hearing more.
And Phoenix put in the chat that she can't talk. So, so anyway, if you want to chat, Phoenix, feel free to just like jump in the chat and put something in, when you can to add to the conversation or ask questions or whatever you want to do. And I'm thinking since we have such a small group that maybe we should all just unmic and then that way we can kind of sort of make it, all participatory and people can jump in with their thoughts and ideas. My name's Jeannie, and I've been with this group for since since the transition of the original to the second. And oh, Magdalena, were you talking?
No,
Oh,
I think there's
okay.
an echo.
I feel like I'm getting a
Yeah.
little feedback, and I don't know if it's my computer. I've been having trouble with my phone, but not my computer, dropping calls. And I've been telling my husband we recently changed to Spectrum, and I'm like, I don't think this Spectrum is working for us. But anyway, hopefully it won't be a mess. But anyway, I've been a doula for a long time, but primarily I've been a volunteer doula. So I've had a lot of clients, but they've mostly come to me through volunteer work. And just in the last, since being exposed and inspired by you guys mostly, have I really even got myself set up to be in private practice. And so I've really only had one private practice client, although I have over the years been contacted to do some private practice work, but then I either at that, was working with a hospice and kind of referred them that way or sadly lost them, or something. And so, so I'm looking to kind of fix that and then, and kind of, just get back on track and be able to do, because I like doing this work as a volunteer, but also I feel like sometimes when you're under the umbrella of a hospice or an volunteer organization that you're limited to some things that you would be able to do if you weren't under their restrictions. And so that has really inspired me to want to do more private practice. Specifically, I had a maid client when I was working at volunteering at one of the hospices, and because we were forbidden to touch the medications, I wasn't able to mix the meds for that client and his, barely legal teenagers, 19, 20-year-olds had to mix the meds for their dads, which just really broke my heart because I could see how difficult that was for them emotionally the whole evening anyway. And then to have that added, on there, that for me was kind of the catalyst to say, okay, I'm going to be ready to do this as in private practice so that the next client doesn't have to do that by themselves. So that's kind of where I am. And I thought we could just kind of maybe go around. I don't know. I haven't organized myself too well with this, but I don't know if we want to start kind of, and then feel free to jump in and redirect it how you see fit. But I thought maybe first we could talk about organizations that we are involved with that help our practice, um, social media that helps us with our practice, and then kind of marketing, speaking engagements, or other kinds of ways of getting ourselves out there so that people become aware of us. How do you guys feel about that? Oh, good. So, so I don't want it to be the genie show, but I tell you what, I'll start with organizations that I'm involved with, in addition to you guys, which I don't know that I've gotten any clientele from the BVDC website as yet, but I uh, when I Google doulas, I see it come up. So I think that it has some, decent, search engine holding. But I think most of the clients that I've been contacted by have found me either through the Anelda website where I'm listed, or the deathdoula.com website. I have a directory listing there. And I also have one with Nita. And but I don't know that I've gotten any clients through them yet either. And then just recently I hooked up with End of Life Choices California to volunteer with them as one of their bedside attendants, but that wouldn't bring me necessarily any private practice work, just experience, I think. So let's somebody else jump in and say what they're kind of doing and what they feel like they have been, what's worked for them or they've gotten calls from or not, as far as
I'll jump in.
organizations go.
I'll jump in because Jeannie, mine is very similar to yours. Um, I especially because I started out with Anelda. I was trained by Anelda, so I'm on their directory, and I have gotten calls, inquiries, and I think one client from Anelda. And then I'm also on deathdoula.com directory, and I haven't gotten. I recently joined deathdoula.com and also NIDA, but I haven't gotten any actual. I mean, I actually just got a call last week. I have an appointment coming up next week, and I'm not sure where they found me. I need to ask them when I speak with them. And I also recently joined the End of Life Choices California. I went to a training for MAID, and I'm going to be speaking with the person who coordinates the volunteer um, coordination for that. And so I'll be volunteering and hopefully do a bedside with MAID. And I also recently joined the Golden Gate Hospice group, so that's wonderful. And working, but that's not, yeah, obviously that's not part of the business piece, but I think it's actually very important. I was working with Rose Room Hospice and I moved to Golden Gate. I feel like it's just a better place for me, and did a talk with them recently and have a patient now that I'm working with. So it just expands my practice, and I think it creates more openness and experience, just confidence, getting that kind of experience to grow my practice even more. So that's me.
Does anybody else want to jump in?
Totally. I'll jump in because I feel like I have a totally contrasting experience to you guys.
Yeah.
I'm not a
I'm,
member of
I,
any like website of any other organization other than our own. Um, every single client I have has either been like connected to somebody I know or found me through word of mouth. I've only had one client that found me through somewhere else, and that was care.com. Because I did in-home care for 10 years, and so that was kind of my gateway into this. So I still have a profile there and lots of good reviews. So I do actually have people now even I guess I have care.com counts maybe then because that's yeah,
yeah.
like now I have enough reviews from clients there that I have families reaching out to me um, it without me listing anything, which is kind of interesting. I've only up until recently only used that site as like when I'm seeking some part-time work with a client. So yeah, that's but really I've because I've been in grad school and like started my practice and then got sick and then COVID started, it was like just not I've just kind of allowed it to be like when I have the capacity, I kind of trust that the clients show up or like when the right person needs me, they show up. But I feel like now that I'm done with school, it's like okay, I don't have a reason to not to titrate my business anymore because before it was like I can't sustainably work with too many clients when I'm in school. And now I have to like switch gears into how do I find people to make this more consistent. Um, but I think that part of this also has been kind of working on this collective really too. That's been a big pull of my energy. And I feel like part of that for me has just been that like community has been how clients have come in for me. So I kind of also trust that as we're building this space, it's going to, I just today actually talked to somebody that took a class that I taught with Mary a couple years ago. Phoenix actually had gotten Mary and I linked up to teach that class for the Ancestor Project. And um, he just reached out to me today because he saw this article about me that was in the newspaper about my case at Naropa. And he had seen it and just was like, I just wanted to offer my support to you. I don't know if you remember me, but I was your student in this class that you taught a couple years ago. And he let me know he was doing animal body work still. And I was like, are you doing end of life animal work? And he said, yes, I just did that. So he might actually be coming into this space too. And it just felt like such a good affirmation that like we're planting seeds in all the things we're doing. And we don't really know when the seeds are going to pop up. But I
Right.
feel like if you're pushing and pressuring it, then it like can collapse, at least for me with like just what my energetic capacity is being disabled. It's like, I got to just trust that like the just kind of keep with the flow. But yeah, it's good to hear that there are these websites that you guys are like getting some inquiries from because I haven't really looked into that too much.
And I say that I'm part of them, but I mean, I wouldn't say with Nelda, maybe I'll get one or two or three calls a year,
Uh-huh.
from
Okay.
there. And even and death.com, maybe even fewer. Like the last time I got a referral, a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't able to take it. But I was able to hand it off to another doula. Um, was through a social worker at one of the hospices. So I volunteer with several hospices, but one is a holistic hospice. It's a volunteer non-medical hospice. And that hospice originally got me into the doula work because I had never heard of a doula before. I was just a hospice volunteer, and they sort of introduced me to Anelda and had a grant to train some of us to do that, and had a very strong end of life doula program for a number of years. But then they changed management, and the new director kind of wanted to blow up the doula program and did, and so on and so forth. But the social worker that was there referred me as sort of a private practice, had somebody call me for private practice. So that was just a couple of weeks ago. And then the last one I had before that was from my hairdresser. So, you know, you kind of don't know where that, but it is just kind of putting it out there and then seeing where where it comes from. Does anybody else want to jump in?
I can. um, I've been working with Golden Gate Hospice as well, and I feel very grateful for the opportunity to have more experiences in the space. And um, I also just received my first paid opportunity to do this work. Technically being hired as a caretaker, which I think is interesting, but she really wants a doula because she wants the doula kind of mindset. Um, so that's yeah, and that was a organic situation. That's a friend of mine that Trish and I graduated with from Anamkara. So yeah, I'm kind of like in the tension of like wanting as much experience and exposure and growth as possible. And also like really wanting to be supporting myself through this work and find myself like arguing with myself a lot about its value and how kind of crunchy it is for me to deal with money in this space in this realm and um yeah So
Yeah, I was talking to a couple of other doulas about that yesterday, about the whole, and setting rates and how much to charge, and that there's such a array of services, right? And some clients might just be for a couple of hours, or some, you might have for months and months and months, and how to kind of address that, and you know and do you want to be specific? And one girl suggested, like, she likes to just say, by donation, and see where that comes, but I don't know, I could see some issues with that as well.
yeah, on my website, the services I do have listed all have like sliding scale, and it's like no one will be turned away for funds, and I feel very like aligned with that. I also find it interesting that it is still seen in such a volunteer lens. I just find it interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I
think
really
it
hope that somewhere down the road that Medicare will pick us up the way they have, birth doulas, and then that will hopefully open some gates.
even that said though, like I'm thinking about like the training to become a therapist and like the last year of your program, you're doing an unpaid internship 20 hours a week. And most therapists do, you know, community mental health, Medicaid, Medicare, that sort of thing when they first start out while they're doing their supervision and to build a practice. And they're making, you know, $40 an hour
Mhm.
with a master's degree.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same with student teaching too, right? Like I think it's kind of this endemic cultural disvaluing of these roles, and it's disproportionately affecting us, I think, for sure, because there isn't that like systemic uh, sort of validation that unfortunately a lot of people look for.
Hmm.
Um,
And I think a lot of us are, at least for myself, I know when I first went into this, I was a volunteer and I was planning to be a volunteer, but also I wanted to have a certain number of deaths under my belt, so to speak, or whatever, or felt like, I really kind of wanted that experience, and I didn't mind, you know, to do it on a volunteer basis. But now I'm looking at the hospices, which is a way a lot of people do get their experience, right, as they volunteer at a hospice. But I really feel like the hospices could be potentially a source of referral, to say, look, okay, I've been a volunteer with you for so, a year, whatever it is, but I'm a private practice doula, and I would like your social worker or your staff or whatever to refer me to those people that you have who are looking for a doula. So that's kind of one of my goals, to sort of start doing with the hospices in this area, because I volunteered for many of them already. And we have a very limited number, not like you guys in Southern California have. Ooh, I don't even know how many hospices down there.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about hospice. I know up here in the Bay Area, I've talked to other doulas and they've kind of just told me like hospice doesn't really want to have anything to do with this unless we're volunteering. Like they don't really want to work with doulas. And so it's like, okay, well then where would the referrals come from? And
uh,
I am on the I know the directory. I haven't received any calls or anything. Um, the doulas I've spoken to here kind of said that palliative care doctors are the way to go. You got to make those relationships with palliative care doctors because they don't work, not necessarily hospice doctors, but like palliative care doctors at hospitals.
Hmm.
Make those relationships. I don't know any palliative care doctors, and I don't know how to like cold call them, but that's where they said the most of the referrals come from, especially for MAID clients, because people who want to go do MAID have to go through a palliative care doctor.
Yeah. I think that's a good suggestion, though. I really do feel like that is something.
I've also met with a few funeral directors in the area, and they seem really open to doulas. Like they were way more welcoming to talk to me than any of the hospices were.
Wow.
Um, they said to come back with like a brochure and a business card I can leave up front, which I haven't like made those yet, but they were really excited to hear from me.
That's really interesting and good to hear. I could see how they would be like more acutely aware of um like the emotional needs. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and people
I've
come to them for,
similarly.
sorry, go
Oh
ahead.
no, go ahead. Go
I was just
ahead.
saying people come to funeral directors to pre-plan all the time, right? That's part of their business
Right.
model. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna echo that I've had a similar experience that funeral directors seem pretty open to it. Although I've always had hospices really like grateful for my presence, and some of the hospices here in Boulder have like a doula list that they share with clients as well. So I never got on the list because I just didn't. I knew that if I had calls coming in, I was gonna say yes, and when I was in school, I couldn't take them. So but it's really disappointing to hear. I'm sorry to hear that, Misha, that that's the experience there. Hopefully that changes sometime
Yeah.
soon.
And I've had a little mixed bag with the hospices too. Like in the beginning, thou doulas, no, we already do that. We have a social worker. We have it's sort of like you're encroaching on their territory. Until then, you sort of prove yourself in the volunteer role that okay, the social worker couldn't get this guy to fill out his advanced healthcare directive, but I had 6 hours to sit there and go, try to figure out who in his life that he hasn't cut off is going to, help him out or whatever. So I think that sometimes it takes a little wearing them down or whatever, or that one little situation where they suddenly are seeing the value of somebody who's there for a more extended period of time or something.
Curious if you guys have, I don't know, for Misha, I don't think we've like connected face to face, but I have a nursing background. And so I've actually been needing space from the traditional medical system. But did work through hospice, like in the nursing side of it for a short time. And, I'm curious if you have connected with any nurses in the hospice or even the social workers that are connected with the hospices up there, because those might be like softer ways to find a connection. But I also down here did find that when I was like networking, like actually in the hospital and the palliative care team were there, that they were like more doula friendly energy just off the bat. And if there's a hospital that is like a teaching hospital that has a population where they're already used, like a culture where they're already used to like being in like a training kind of space, that usually those probably will be like a easier in to finding somebody within the system that is like a good person to network. So I think it's mm, probably makes sense to like if there's like a initial connection with like a doctor that doesn't feel good, then just like send that off to the ether and like find somebody else within the organization, because sometimes there's only like one doula friendly person within like a whole medical system, and you might just have to like hunt around to find them. Um, yeah.
I just got this new job as a life enrichment assistant at a senior living community. And
Mm.
like when I signed the contract, and then one of the things it says is like you could not work in a private practice privately with any of the residents here. And so I haven't like had they all know I'm a death doula. I didn't hide that information. So I haven't had the instance yet where like a resident has asked me yet to be the doula. But I'm not sure how that's gonna go exactly, or what I would even be able to ask for, or yeah.
Oh yeah, because boy, that's like a little, you know,
Yeah.
I've had one
Mm.
client that I worked with, and I kind of was her doula, but I was working for an organization, so I couldn't charge more than what I was getting paid by them. But I, ended up, kind of playing this dual role, and it was a really fulfilling experience. So I
Mm.
think there's probably people there that are gonna, need you at some point, and it's exciting that you have that space to be there, and you know, the family members of my clients that have worked with me when I was doing that work in that way, those people have like spread my name and
Mm.
gotten me out to other families, and actually led to me being the doula for that woman's best friend. And so I think, yeah,
Mm.
it's probably gonna hopefully lead to other
Right.
things too down
I
the
hope
line.
so
Yeah.
too. It's an assisted living type facility, Misha, or
They have independent living, assisted living, and a skilled nursing, like all in the same grounds.
because one of the places I kind of wanted to go with this, and maybe this is a good segue, is to like get yourself out there in those kind of facilities and do presentations on, what is a doula. Just recently, I haven't got anything from it yet, but I was able to speak at the local cancer resource center. They put me on their calendar to do a presentation on what is a doula, and I want to say like 8 or 9 people showed up. It wasn't a huge crowd, but they picked up some cards and stuff. And so, I feel like that's an ideal place, and that there would be a lot of people interested in maybe a little workshop that talks about either end of life options or what a doula does or what a doula can do.
Yeah, I just don't think I could promote myself.
Yourself. I know.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, do I want to put
Yeah.
this together and then have, my friend get the business or
Yeah.
whatever, but maybe you do, or maybe you're able to
Yeah.
help her. I do have a friend who recently moved into it's also an independent with graduated facilities up in Healdsburg. It's like kind of like a Zen um, focused retirement community, and she is like a doula there and has put together and trained people to help her vigil, and she's kind of like the doula for the community now, right? And so that's been kind of a cool thing, but she lives there, and so she's not, I think, precluded from, because she's not an employee, from promoting herself. You're in a trickier situation, but um,
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
I'm curious because I heard that the social worker they have on staff is also a death doula. So I might go talk to her and be like, hey.
maybe you could, that between the two of them, you could wear them down and say, look, this is
Yeah.
private practice. We'll do our job here. And if somebody, or something, yeah, maybe there's a way
Yeah.
to grow that at some point, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I would love it if that would happen for you, though.
Yeah. Thank you.
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that we do have to do some kind of self promotion a little bit. Go out there, whether it's speaking to groups, like setting up a presentation to speak to a group of people about doulas, or end of life options, or whatever it is, or if it's more like what you were saying, like one on one, like going to see the funeral director, or going to see you know the the care manager at the residential care facility, or whatever it is, and then saying, look, here are my services, and if you have people who are looking for this service, let's help each other out. When I have somebody that's looking for a residential care facility, I'll send them to you, or a cremation, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I also recently have started looking into creating like I've never downloaded like any of these apps that you're connected with your actual community and village and neighborhood, like the Nextdoor app or things like that. But
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I was actually thanks to the price of gas being like damn near unaffordable, I was like, I would love to be like the community El Camino Village doula to where I can walk to folks' houses. And I guess I don't know, it seems like that like this Nextdoor app has a ways that you can like self-promote events you have or thing, your what you're offering. And so I've kind of been called to connect more intimately like with my community. And um I also am navigating the insurance route on the birth doula side, um, which is a lot of hoops and a pain in the ass. But I am grateful that my birth doula training nonprofit, which is SBCC, they are so like once you get like a birth doula training under your belt to be able to connect with the insurance, there's you got to go through this portal, which is called PAVE, PAVE, the PAVE portal, and put all your credentials and stuff in there. And then you're qualified to accept Medi-Cal um, clients and get reimbursement. But under Medi-Cal, maybe like less than 10% are just straight Medi-Cal. 90% have like a managed care plan under, associated with Medi-Cal. So as a doula, then you have to like independently contract with each managed care plan that you want to associate with. And then once you do get a contract going, you as a doula got to do your own billing to get the reimbursed, like to get the payment after you've done your connection with the client. And so there are organizations or people or entities or as individuals or whatever that will do these services, help with the contracting, do the billing for you, and they just take, a cut. And so the average it seemed to be like 15%, 15 to 17%, is what most of these entities are requesting to be able to do that billing for you. But fortunately, the one that I graduated through, they're offering like only like to take 10%, and so I'm like chipping away at getting to where I can accept insurance to get um, some sort of financial compensation to be in the doula world. And with my population aiming to be like end of life NICU based or abortion support, um, like I will be like tying in my death energies like in that way. And then, yeah, so I'm hoping to network and collaborate directly with the Planned Parenthood that's down the street from me to build like a doula relationship with them. Because the majority of their patients, I would be able to accept their insurance, and it in my in my mind's eye is this like beautiful reciprocal relationship. So I've kind of really zoomed in to like my direct, intimate community and village to see what is available in this space closer to myself. Mm.
I feel like some communities do respond to that. And I haven't done that for my doula work, but I love that idea. But I have advertised death cafes on Nextdoor with,
Mm.
you know, I noticed that it does, sort of bring some people in. And I did with when I was volunteering at one of the hospices, they were doing workshops at the library on advanced healthcare directives, which is something that we could do as doulas as well, just to, help people out and have a way to expose them to us and explain to them maybe some of the things we do. But I put that on Nextdoor and had I don't know, at least a dozen people waiting at the library when we opened the door to fill out advanced healthcare directives. So at least
Mhm.
those are people who are thinking about, uh,
Mhm.
that they're going to die.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
it's a really good idea too to like branch into these different doula realms that overlap so much. I've been actually not, I mean, I am interested in getting into the like more like birth doula side of things, and I have been doing an abortion doula training, but I've actually been more thinking about getting my license to do estate planning so
Mm.
that I can do like end of life planning, like comprehensive end of life planning with clients. And then usually people are like updating those things, reviewing them at least every, few years, especially as they're getting older. And so it like creates that consistent relationship over time. And I'm just trying to like figure out things that actually people are willing to spend money on. And people
Yeah.
are more than happy to pay you to do the legal documents. And it's not something I'm like super excited about, but I feel like it kind of makes sense as like another thing that could bring in more of that like community role of like, okay, yes, I'm doing this service for you, and maybe you don't work with me as a doula, but if you do, it means we have this ongoing relationship for a period of time, not just like a when you decide you need it at the 11th hour, you know?
I think that's brilliant, Magdalena, because yeah, people pay estate planners and fiduciaries and everything all of the time. And how many of those people don't even know what a doula is, or that that's a something that they need, until you get an opportunity to tell them about it. And so that just opens a door, and those are automatically people who are planning anyway. And so I think that's a great idea.
My mom is an estate lawyer in New York, and I talk to her about it all the time. She's like, I wish you lived here because I'd have so many referrals for you. And yeah, I mean, there is like a lot of overlap. She like is probably one of the people that can relate to me the most easily about this work because she does have so many conversations, obviously, about like practical conversations about death and dying with people. So and long-term relationships over many years towards the end of life. So yeah, I think that's really smart.
Hmm.
I want
Also,
to,
hmm,
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I've been meaning to bring this to the group, but I've been thinking about maybe it'd be interesting for her to like hop on one of these calls, and talk about what she does. I saw some nods, so yeah, maybe we'll get that on the schedule next year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Cool.
Let's ask her when she would be want to. We have like open availability for next year. So
Oh,
yeah.
perfect.
I was just gonna say I wanted to like bring in what's happening in the chat. Phoenix had brought attention to that this is, the female dominated fields, and Susan just kind of put in the emotional labor, being freely provided by women. I just that was really hitting me, and it's very timely with the conversation of like what are people willing to pay for? They're willing to pay for like the authority, the patriarchal, like financial aspect of things because they're so afraid of like what happens to their money when they die. They're not thinking about, you know, that they are going to die. Um, I I wonder like how we can use that truth to kind of like, I don't know, call people into this as well, because I think a lot of women are seeing this and have a say in what happens, in these times. And maybe that's like part of it is also like building the community of women, you know?
Yes, because we all know we're expected to work for free so much, right? It's just, it's, inherent in this culture.
I've been
Yeah.
thinking,
Go ahead. That was all.
I
Just
was
like,
thinking about
yeah.
this in terms of like even calling myself a doula, like feels very feminine. And will people like if I called myself like an end of life advocate, would that would I be able to charge more? Would people pay more for that? Which is so ridiculous. When the work would be the same.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good thought. Yeah.
But yeah, it's possible it would have an impact. Yeah, I feel kind of frustrated. I mean, like we're at where we're at and I'm here for it and I accept it, but it is also, in the other hand, really frustrating that I feel like we are responsible to do so much educating and like labor in that way just to even like prove the value of this work. Like, yeah, I've had some conversations with hospice where they're very much like show me why you're worth it by doing all of this volunteer labor. And
Mhm.
and then at the same time, like calling me in an emergent urgent situation and being like, I need you to do this thing. And it's like, so you do understand, you know, part of you does. And yeah, some days that really pisses me off, if I'm being honest, that there's
Yeah.
like, yeah, just all of the emotional labor, all of the education labor, just to even like prove legitimacy where I think it speaks for itself, but it's changing for sure.
I know too that there's like a huge kind of crisis building of like family members caring for, like there's a lot of other people that are doing this work totally unpaid and they aren't calling themselves a doula, but they're doing they're doing it. And I don't know, I feel like pushing for those people to also get paid as
Mhm.
things that we're like prioritizing when we're thinking about who we're voting for, it's really important that all of those people that are doing that work are getting supported, because once they're getting supported, then we are already going to be able to like legitimize like this is also a profession and there's people who do this consistently and have expertise in it. um yeah, I guess that's where that thought's ending.
Yeah,
Um,
I think.
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Trish.
Um, I've been creating also, um, I think Tess, before you were talking about sliding scale, and it made me reminded myself. I like spent a lot of time thinking about sliding scale and what that what felt like in most alignment, and like I think a lot about disparity, and I think a lot about all these things. But something that I've been creating is like a list, like a barter list of things that I would be available to accept for maybe like up to like 50% of the cost. Um, and so like stepping into like true abundance feeling of like what is it that I need to like survive, like if I'm going to be able to like survive and sustain myself energetically to offer the services that I feel called to offer, like what is the true dollar value of that, and being honest with myself with that, and then creating space where it's like, what are the things in my life that I could also accept as in lieu of financial exchange in a money form, like piano lessons for my kids or garden stuff, propagated whatever, or whatever, like making that list. So
That's
that it's
hard.
like, yeah, I'm not just like sliding scale to say like, okay, you can only pay me 50% of my rate. You can pay me 50% of the rate and like offer something from my list. Yeah.
I love that
Gosh,
idea.
I like
it's
that
so
too.
funny you mentioned that because I was just thinking, about as we're like kind of putting together the store.
Hmm.
And for those of you that don't know, like Tess and I in particular have been kind of working on creating a store for us to be able to both independently be able to sell things that we all create. So if you have some sort of side creative or like herbalist or whatever sort of offering, we can host those things for people. And then the money that's coming back to our collective is going to be going into a mutual aid fund for people that can't afford a doula, so that we're ensuring that we can, as a collective, provide a service to people, but also not do that if we don't also have an exchange for us. I personally have never volunteered. I've always been paid. Um, and I think it's really important for us to all stay really firm on that. But
I'm so
um,
proud of you for that. Holy cow, that's so cool.
thanks. But Trish, I feel like this is kind of opening me up to like wondering if that's like another component of this, of like maybe we offer like, and you could also give our store pottery you made or artwork you have or something that we can also use to keep creating this in exchange for services. So just thank you so much, because I feel like that just like expanded how this offering and piece of what we're doing can step away from being entirely dependent on the financial system.
In terms of sliding scale, I've also been thinking about like instead of framing sliding scale as like how much can you pay, reframing it as like how much I need to survive. Like having the lowest option being literally my like doing the math, like how many hours do I usually put in for this? How many money do I need to make? Like this is a minimum that I can take, and then offering higher options and telling people that like not like if you can afford more, but like if you want to support me more, if you want to offer it to other people, if you want to like, pay it forward and be generous. But like having that minimum really be a minimum. Unless there's like and naming like if I get enough people to pay a higher rate, I can offer these scholarship positions, this many specific numbers. And yeah, just being transparent about it.
Yeah, I love that. We're getting such great ideas going around here. Susan, you've been so quiet. Jump in because I know you're so smart.
Well, I don't know enough about this subject really to be opening my mouth very wide. Um, but I will say, like I'm here basically to learn from you guys, and that's how I feel every month. And I learned so much from you. That's not even about the topic of the day. Um, and this, sorry, as a raging feminist, is a topic that's really important to me about women's unpaid emotional labor and roles traditionally female. While I believe that somewhere there is a unicorn man doing end of life doula work, I haven't met him yet. And traditionally this was a wise woman role. Um, it also it just expands for me the way I think of this, as far as kind of basically starting your own business.
Mhm.
And a lot of my personal struggle lately has been around self-promotion and like really just coming up against the wall of how much I suck at it. And a lot of that also has to do with being a woman and all the ways I was taught not to stand out and not to talk about myself and all the knots that I'm so much smarter than to do, right? I know better. I'm, a fully trained feminist. And yet, right? It's all still there. So I did a retreat like last weekend. And for the whole like month before, it was about, promotion, getting it out there. And this like a little shriveled inside me, my heart shriveled to the size of a peanut, is unavoidable to like look at that and sit with that and be willing to grow past it, right? To feel the discomfort, which, for me is a meditation of just offering my willingness to feel whatever's holding me back and release it. And so I walked around with this tension for a couple of days. And then all of a sudden that sort of exploded in wordless sobbing, like a thunderstorm in the sky that lasted for about half an hour. And I'm lighter now. And so I think a lot of the work that we do sometimes when we come together is that emotional space or that cacao ceremony that we did, or, the kind of retreat space we had in December. I think that kind of almost exorcism of the patriarchal colonization of our minds and bodies might be something to consider just along these lines of just freeing ourselves from that kind of dominion that was taken over us, that's been taken over our culture that we were born into for at least 2,000 years, but we all know it's 10. So that's my 2 cents because I don't have a business yet. But I do I am a writer and a teacher and other things in other spaces, and so I rub up against this issue a lot in my own consciousness. And once you get past the I should be over this by now part, then it's like, what are you going to do about it? So that's my 2 cents about a subject I don't know as much about as you guys do.
No, thank you so
Hey,
much.
we're all just trying to figure it out, honestly. I mean,
Well, I think it's the same, whatever business you're trying to do as a woman, that
mhm.
you're going to come up against this somehow. And you can steel yourself and go, that's not me. I don't have that problem, and go out into the world. Or you can open your heart, which this is more like us, and just
Mhm.
feel whatever it is, you know, just be willing. I guess that's my motto.
Yeah, thank you so much for voicing that. I was just I've been tapping back into gardening, and what a beautiful way to like connect with my inner child and my mental health and all of these things. And just before the call, I was like out in my backyard, basically like covered in mud and like with this shovel. And
Mhm.
I have an 8-year-old who's in second grade, and my kids are beautiful mirrors, direct connection to me, at whatever age they are. And as I was out there like digging, it just came to me this memory of being in second grade in Alabama, and where I was, they would paddle kids as a discipline. And so I was like back being that age, being like made to sit in my seat and listen to my classmates get hit, you know? And I like the rage came out and the sadness came out. And I was like, I'm made to sit still and I'm made to like suppress and I'm made to, um, like there is a consequence of pain and harm for me being myself or, for people being themselves. And so I was like out there like, fuck that, like releasing that and connecting to that version of me where I was one of the many times in my life, I'm sure, that I've been taught that to be myself, there's a consequence of harm. To move, there's a consequence of harm. To play, to, whatever it was. Yeah. And all, yeah. So,
I would say to even attract attention, right? To
yeah.
even attract the gaze, especially in
Oh,
that
yeah.
situation that you're talking about,
Yeah.
to even have the eyeballs turn on you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Don't, mm, don't want
right?
anything to do with that. Oop. Yeah. So whereas I like when I find myself being like, oh my gosh, this is taking so long. When am I gonna ever, whatever. And then it's like, there's a root to that. And I just be curious. You said doula curious. I'm like curious about like where the hell is that coming from? And I'm just gonna, if I can find it, great. If not, I know it's rooted somewhere because that's not my nature, my true, being, and just, like sever it. So yeah, um, growing my doula business has been like such a self introspective, like evolutionary journey, paralleling it and intertwining with it. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
You're so wonderfully qualified too.
Mhm.
The other thing I would say right now is how much it pisses me off that you have to be like connected with each insurance thing that you want,
Oh,
like how they purposely make it difficult.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like you can't just be like approved, you have to be approved by each one.
Each one. And
Yeah, it's just,
the part with that is that now that California is like being made because of law, um, to expand what their doula, like that they're made to like offer doula services or whatever. And like the reimbursement rates were like really shitty. And then through advocacy and whatever, like they've been made to. So now there's like this gap where it's like, well, they're still reimbursing under the lower rate. And so you're having to like advocate and demand. It's like a nightmare. And then
Mm.
so now that there's been like a little bit of an influx in doula graduates in the birth doula realm, they're using this like roadblock, bottleneck of like, oh, we're overwhelmed with the contracting process. So, it's taken 6 months for me to still not yet have the contract because they're like, we look at this quarterly or whatever. And it's like, meanwhile, all of these women are like without access to their doula, and so it's just like, um, yeah, one thing after another. Um,
One battle after another.
yeah, it's really bad. Hmm.
Yeah, to me, part of becoming a death doula is to not work within those systems. Like if I wanted to do
Right.
that, I would get a hospice job.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what's the whole point?
That's the thing where it's like, I'm just like feeling into like whatever, trusting, I guess, that being able to connect with that like meets a need for me of like connecting with a certain population. And so like I will jump through these hoops so that I'm able to connect with the population that I feel called to and trust that there will be like the private side that has nothing to do with that is going to like happen.
Mm.
Yeah.
I have to hop off soon, but I just wanted to share. And when we're talking about like this being a small business, like I've really been leaning into that. Like I'm an entrepreneur, like getting
Mhm.
comfortable with that word.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Um, and I don't know what it's like in Southern California where you guys all are, but I'm the Bay Area YWCA. I'm in. They have a free 8-week small business startup course,
Mhm.
and I'm finishing it up now. And the instructor is actually a birth doula, so I was worried it would be like very businessy, but she's been really helpful. And the course ends with coming up with a business, like a 10-page business plan that I can use to submit to like grants and all sorts of things. And then yeah, now that we're finishing the course, she's having us connect with the SBDC, the Small Business Development
Oh,
Center, I think it's called. And they have free business mentorships for small businesses, and they're going to help me apply to grants. And I know, like, hadn't even considered grants being a way of getting funding, but like, there are grants. There's money to be thrown around, right?
Mhm.
yeah.
So
I
just those
love
two
that. That's
organizations
so
that
cool. Yeah.
will be an option for you.
Yeah.
Maybe there are some grants to pay for doulas out there. I mean,
Yeah,
who knows?
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. But thank you for this. I have to hop off.
All right. Thank you.
Really
Okay.
great.
No, thanks for
Thanks,
coming. Yeah.
Misha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye.
Misha.
Bye.
We still have like 20 minutes, so I feel like we could still kind of brainstorm a little bit if you guys are able to stay. And Karen, jump in. You've been quiet for a little while.
I'm not coming up with anything. The only thing that came up for me was when Trish was talking about getting paddled. I recalled I don't know if I told you guys about this, but aside from everything else that I experienced, uh, I was in a Catholic school, and the Latin teacher, Sister Amadeus, who was probably 150 years old, I don't know, in her habit, she would use her hand gestures to conjugate the verbs, amo, amas, amat, amamas, amatas, amat. And then she would say, D, F, which meant dress down, feet on floor. And the things that we were told, I mean, I don't know how many of you have experience with Catholic nuns, but um, don't ever wear patent leather shoes because they will be a mirror for the boys to look up your skirts.
Oh,
And when we had dances, they would be up on the balconies with floodlights, and they would project the light onto any couples that were syncopated embracing, which is basically their word for slow dancing. And it came up because I was just thinking about, I mean, it had a huge impact. the whole that's all part of this sort of patriarchal, control of girls before they become women, so that, the men can, do what they do
Yeah.
without us being able to do what we want to do or would like to do, and feel kind of just flat out shame for it, for being
Yeah.
us, so, and I think that does play into our lack of capacity to sort of put ourselves out there. And like I've heard I heard an idea about going to the City of Hope. The hospice nurse who was on my last case said, "Oh my gosh, I've never heard of doulas." She was with the City of Hope, and she said, "I've never heard of this. You should go to the City of Hope because there's so many opportunities there." And this was months ago, and I still haven't gone. And now I'm thinking I really need to go,
Mhm.
and do a presentation of some sort, leave my cards or whatever, talk, find out who I can contact. But it's that feeling like of like I can't put myself out there like that. It's just it's too daunting, you know. So,
It's scary and hard.
yeah,
And then also, and then where do you go? Like, many months back, and you guys, I was kind of hopeful that I would have this like breakthrough with the Sisters of St. Francis. They had
right.
contacted me. We need a doula, and they do need a doula. And they would, send me an email every couple of weeks about some, TED talk or a book or but whatever, but there was all this, administrivia they were trying to work through, but they really doula themselves. And they started out when they first contacted me, there were probably 16 of them. I think they're down to 10 or 11 now because they're old and they're dying. And, and I'm just thinking, well, why haven't you brought me in to like help you vigil with these, sisters who don't have family, most of them. But I think that what will happen is eventually they'll get down to such a small amount that can vigil that maybe they'll call me or something. I don't know. It just is kind of pittered out. But I thought, when I first heard about it, I thought, there's a real need for these people, right? They don't even have family to help them, go through this. And not just nuns, but, there's priests and other, you know, um, retirement communities that are a little bit more isolated and have less, homeless people, although I'm sure there's, not going to be any money there, but there's certainly, places where there's these pockets of people who would have a need, and then, kind of where does it go? It's a roller coaster, this doula business.
I meant to
I
say
think,
earlier too. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Okay. When I was working with Golden Gate, one of the things I was doing was trying to figure out like what the actual requirements are to be the spiritual care provider um through hospice. One of the things with hospices, like they can be super shitty towards like doulas, and I feel like a lot of it's rooted in like the reimbursement rates that they get are really shitty. And so there isn't like a lot of abundance of money that they're getting from insurances to provide these different things. Everything is very like, you know, corner cutting, and they have to kind of like advocate and say like we need this for this person and whatnot. So like there is like some of that financial whatever energy I think is getting directed like toward the doulas, and that's why it's like, oh, good, we recognize we need this support, but all we can offer is a volunteer space. So that had me diving into more of the what is the actual requirement for a spiritual care provider, and so we had connected with the Joint Commission. JACO used to be called, I think, the Joint Commission, to see like from their language, like what are the requirements, and based on what they responded, doulas can fill that role. It just had to do with being able to do a spiritual assessment, being able to document within the chart, um, being able to offer whatever the spiritual needs of that person were. So it was very doula, like doulas can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a gap between hospices being aware of this and the whatever would need to be created to to safely, like HIPAA wise and whatnot, have a doula be accessing a chart, and being able to like access the chart and chart in the chart or whatever that gap would be.
If she
Um,
wasn't a staff person at the hospice, you mean? Yeah.
yeah, well, just because the Golden Gate one, they don't have like onboarding training or an onboarding like education or an onboarding anything, for their staff, much less for like a doula who is, um, so yeah, it just was involving more energy than I had to give to
Yeah.
that space, but it's absolutely a possibility. And I think the spiritual care providers through Golden Gate were getting um between 80 or $100 per visit, I want to say. Most were like saying, like the management there didn't really have like a lot of like a consistency or a backbone. So it'd be like if one person demanded $100, they'd give them 100 and whatever. So yeah, there's definitely probably room there for a doula to
So
dive in.
Trisha, I I spent a lot of hours talking to Dr. Arash about this
Hmm.
because he wanted to find a way for doulas to be paid.
Hmm.
Um, so it's like for with Jaco, he got his own permission,
Hmm.
and then you're supposed to have a master's of divinity to do this from an accredited institution, and he's trying to find a way around that. And then he wanted me to write an instrument, a test, right, that people could take to be considered paid. But as I spoke to him, it was all seemed like it was very much him talking to his friends on the Joint Commission and getting permission to do that himself rather
Hmm.
than it being more widely recognized. And the more that I spoke with him, I have a lot of experience with like educational accreditation, and it's very similar. Um, uh, it just, it's like there's a missing link in
Hmm.
in in how do you as a doula show that you have this level of expertise that you can chart, that you can
Yeah.
do these things, that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can be paid. That
Hmm.
link is missing.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me like a 60-hour a week unpaid job to try to create that link that
Right.
he wanted me to take on just out of the
Mhm.
goodness of my heart or the passion of my, you know,
Yeah.
whatever.
Red flag, red flag,
Um,
red flags.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly. And it's like it seemed like a more than full-time career
Hmm.
unpaid labor
Hmm.
to make this link, which really doesn't exist, I don't think. It has to be created.
Yeah,
And I'm not
definitely. Yeah.
qualified to write that instrument. So he
Hmm.
was saying to me, it's like when a doctor, you don't have to go through medical school to be a doctor, you just have to pass the boards. And I was like, yeah, and that's the problem with the argument, right? Because the people creating the instrument, the test, to say you're good enough, they're not like retired high school teachers,
Hmm.
they're doctors,
Yeah.
Hmm.
right? So if you want to pass a cardiology board, it's written, the test is written by a cardiologist.
Hmm.
But he wanted me to write that test.
Hmm.
So finally,
For
I just
free.
had, yeah, for free. So
Yeah.
finally, I just had to say to him, I am not qualified to write that instrument simply because I've done 10 years of pastoral care. Right. But that means that I in pastoral care have worked within Christianity. So I worked for a church and they sent me. So everybody I went to in that capacity was Christian. But that doesn't mean that I can walk in necessarily and work with someone in Islam or Buddhism, right? So, how am I supposed to create this instrument that's going to show that you have proficiency in all those traditions that you can, or Judaism, that you could just walk in and do that? And that's where the whole thing breaks down.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And that's why you really do, like right now, have to be a master of divinity. Like it's a master's degree. So I even went and looked at programs, right, for how to become qualified to get this funding. And the cheapest one was $6,000. And it's like, because it's 4 semesters of college level work.
Mm.
So that's my 2 cents worth. I spent like probably 10 or 15 hours talking to him on the phone about this.
Yeah, yeah, he definitely
He
wants
loves it. He
the over.
definitely wants someone to pick up his
Um,
flag. And I said, you have this vision, and then you want someone else to bring it into the world. And he went, yeah.
Yeah, and not get paid for it.
yeah,
No, there's no
yeah,
the future. It's a promise of future payment, not
yeah.
from him either, right?
Yeah.
But that you're going to create the pathway through which you can be paid by Medicare or
Mm.
yeah, something like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it felt like to me after a while of talking to him, it felt like to me like a pipe dream.
Is the master's degree, are you talking about like to become a chaplain or
Yeah, well, it's to get paid, to get recognized by Medicare, to be paid for kind of chaplaincy visits, for spiritual counseling kind of visit.
yeah, because there's like so much gray area that like again, I
Right,
was diving so deep into it and not getting paid to do that. And so I
right.
had to stop. But I read the email from the Joint Commission to him. And there is,
He
like
has the gray area for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Yeah, there's a gray area where it's like the spiritual care provider not no needing to be a like if you're talking about yourself as a chaplain, that's one thing, but the spiritual care provider, which is like, whatever the minimum requirement for the hospice to send out, like were there other qualifications other than something a doula already has, to be.
Right.
But then what you said though, it's like the ethicality of proving that a doula that you're accepting into your organization is qualified through whatever the lens is,
Right, exactly right.
and who's to
And
say, yeah, we are the ones to
he
make that?
wanted,
Yes.
because I have a background in education and can design instruction, he wanted me to make a course to
Yeah.
train doulas to get like some kind of, okay to go and bill under that.
hmm That's probably like the idea that I planted that I said we need something to be able to vet people that are coming in and to be able to
Yes,
train
yes, you do.
people to
Well,
like make sure that they know, how to chart and what to chart and what language not to say, within a chart, whatever the stuff is, like you need to have some
yeah.
But
training,
even you actually do, and that's just one part of it because now
Yeah.
you're not even touching on all the different spiritual traditions that you should be, you know, fluent in.
hmm
Yeah.
Well, the spiritual care providers that they do send, sometimes there's definitely a gap in my experience of availability to be able to have somebody at any
And
moment of the day,
and willingness,
yeah, willingness,
because
for
the
sure.
churches and stuff like that, if you're not part of their congregation, a lot of times they'll say, we're not going to go visit that person who's not part of our congregation.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Trish, I have a question, a hospital kind of question for you. And I guess what's kind of got me thinking about this is, recently I've been trying to get involved with an end of life choices. And at one of their volunteer meetings a month or so ago, they said something like they had like 13 ingestions, that came through their organization in the state that month, and that 9 of them were referrals from Kaiser Hospital.
Mm.
So we don't have a Kaiser in this area, but obviously there's big Kaiser facilities in Southern and Northern California. And I'm just wondering, so if there are that many prescribing doctors for MAID at a Kaiser hospital, is is there a way that we could get in and or get connected with them to somehow be refer, to for them to refer that yes, I'm going to prescribe you this medicine, but in addition to that, you may also want a doula to, I now they do refer to end of life choices for bedside attendants for the day of ingestion, but that's just really for the day of ingestion. I don't think that and that's something that I've got to ask end of life choices a little bit more about is like how much, because I'm not even sure if they do ritual after the death or anything
Mm.
at their bedside ingestions, which is
Mhm.
something that I've always tried to incorporate in doula work, whether it was a maid death or a traditional. So
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, like, in your hospital experience, is there a place for them to refer to private practice,
I think,
social
yeah,
workers, or anybody, or
I think that again, like that there would be a golden nugget of a person within each hospital system that would be like, oh my gosh, yes, this is important and this makes sense to do. And it's hard, I feel like, to get some people out of their routine of whatever, but there is this referral hierarchy, whatever, to so like say there's 50 hospices down here and there's a hospital, they have their list that they rotate through who are we offering to this patient first, which hospice first. And
yeah.
then if they don't respond within however many minutes or hours, I don't know, then they go to the next one on the list, you know? And so then like allegedly then the next patient, they're supposed to start with the next one on the list. So there is
And
this
same
like,
with funeral homes too, right? When somebody
yeah.
dies in the hospital, kind of.
Yeah. So there's a lot of sticky dickiness about like who's giving the referrals to who's the favorite. Oh my gosh, eagerness for response time, accept anyone you can, even though we don't have the staff or the ability to like meet that person's needs, like grab, money, so there's just like so much of that. But when I did go in person to a hospital, and I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was, but I could figure it out. Talking to the physician that does sign for medical aid of dying, they were like so happy to connect with Tessie and I, like as doulas, to
Mm.
because there is such a gap in the whole system. There's like a huge gap um in the medical aid provider that goes like, I don't know, like beyond the one that signs the thing, like for hospices, like
Yeah.
there's a lot of gaps. So
Yeah. I'm just wondering what,
yeah.
I guess I'm just trying to think about some doors that we haven't
Hmm.
thought of or something.
Yeah. I mean, I think networking and like just
5 minute
calling the
warning, by the way,
hospital.
you guys. So,
Yeah.
because we're 4:30, right? We're supposed to wrap up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of possibility. Actually, I was like overwhelmed with finding all of the gaps that existed in that area because my instinct was like, oh my gosh, I need to be the one to fix all of them and find all of them. And I was like, but yes, there's a lot of space.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
just wondering if that's an opening
hmm
that, and I know that I was just talking to a couple of girls in this area because we're trying to do a little collective here to help each other out and stuff. And we were talking about teaming up to go to, assisted living facilities or something to offer services so that because there's that fear, right, of that self-marketing and we're just not used to that and self-promotion and that kind of to thinking of talking about doing it sort of on a buddy system.
That's so smart.
hmm
I really that makes so much sense to me, right? Because you're you're not just 50% stronger. I think you're 100% stronger if you have someone with you. And if you have an agreed upon time that you're going to go together, then it's a lot harder to like back out on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And doing the in-person stuff, like I've also been called to do that, like with the funeral homes, with the assisted living, because then you're also energetically feeling out all these places so to know like who would I want to refer any of my loved ones or my community or anybody to if they need a skilled nursing facility or if there is a pediatric thing involved, like who has an awareness about pediatrics in the funeral and mortuary services, who,
And you want that personal connection. I mean, that's
yeah.
why I'm driving down south tomorrow. It's like, I don't want to pay a property manager to screen my tenants. I want to look at those
hmm
people and talk to those people and, you
hmm
know,
Yeah.
I feel like maybe this is a resource we should add to our library would be like a working document for
Yeah. Community definitely.
practitioners, people in the field that we recommend, what their niches are,
Hmm
maybe share reviews or like also could be like a, hey, I had a really bad experience with this organization or something like
Mm,
that space because I think I don't know. I'm just thinking again about the topic that we're on of a business, and I'm also seeing how this group continues to show up and expand and grow, and maybe it's through us, kind of collectively coming together and having like, hey, we're Beyond the Veiled Doula Collective, and these are our practitioners. And, because I think there's something too to be said of like, people go and they pay twice as much as they'll pay for me as a caregiver to an organization that has a group of caregivers, because they know that if somebody calls in sick or has a surgery or their kid has a graduation or whatever, they can cover it because they've got each other's backs. And I know we're remote to some degree, but a lot of us are in similar areas, and
Mhm.
we are continuing to sort of expand. So I think, just thinking of it in serious terms too, of like, hey, that we're stronger in numbers, and it has more validity when you say like we're practitioners underneath an organization
That makes a
instead
lot of
of just
sense.
this one
Yes.
woman that's trying to get you to think that I'm worth paying,
Yes. And yes, we're independent contractors, but we're also involved with this, yes, with this collective.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I know we've talked, and Jeannie, you weren't there, but last meeting we had talked a little bit, and it's been kind of a conversation in the um co-working meetings, but that um the possibility of us offering, these like doula sessions online, which would also require us to have insurance, which we're already going to need once we become a nonprofit.
Hmm.
And so I think that's another piece too, is that there are these like overlying expenses of running your own business that are really hard for one person to take on. And I think we just got to keep ourselves open to all of the possibilities of ways to make this more, um, to work harder or smarter, not harder, right? Like
Right.
to get all of our needs met instead of, all of us independently trying to, um, pay for all these things that they make us pay for to keep it prohibitive. It's really
Yes.
frustrating.
Yeah. A co-op kind of spreading the costs
Hmm.
among.
Yes.
Makes a
Yes.
Yeah.
lot of sense.
Yeah, it really does.
It's very connected to that idea Jeannie had about going places together, like doing all of it together. And it's such the opposite model to the patriarchal way of doing things is community, right? That's the answer to patriarchy is the care in community. And so the more that we can be that, right, for each other, I think the more we answer it.
And for most of us, that's what's drawing us to
Yeah,
this.
that's
It's
right.
that community, right? That caring
Mhm.
community.
Yeah. I've been craving like a village, and then I just was like finally sat with myself and I was like, oh, I saw the myriad of ways that I was like either preventing or avoiding my own village or not
Mhm.
allowing the village that's like right here, like my neighbors on my own street, my village that's like right here. Like I'm like, oh, I want a village, and my village is here, and I'm like, no, no, like I want a village, and my village is like, hi, hi. So I'm like, you know, ay, ay, ay.
As you do.
Yeah, as you do.
Okay,
All
we're
right.
we're we're running over, and I just want to give everybody a chance for any last thoughts that they didn't get an opportunity to say before we, kind of sign out.
No, I think this was great. I appreciate the space and everybody's brainstorming
Thank
thoughts.
you, everybody, for showing up,
Mm.
and for the great ideas and the just the energy. I mean, that's the one thing I really love about, well, there's many things I love about this group, but I just always love that I'm so inspired and so energized after meeting with you guys.
Thank you for hosting, Jeannie.
My pleasure. I was my turn to do something, so I don't know.
Thanks, Jeannie.
You're
Thank
welcome. We'll see
you.
you guys next month, if not sooner.
Thank
Yes.
you, beautiful women.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks for
Love
showing up,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye.